Yep, folks, you're being scammed big time. The wolves have convinced you, the sheeple, to stay away from the shepherd.
Wake up!
I'm awake and alive. Good old hibernation. Say, Helen, how long did we sleep this time?
It's been months and years.
Over a century.
Space! I can't bear it or stand it. Earth! Earth! Dead! The remnants of man! Alone!
Get him to the recuperation rooms. Call Pandora. Santos is going into galactic distress.
This is the Patriot Broadcasting Company. The following program has been approved by Texan Women Against the Suffrage.
From out of the silent gas clouds come imagined legends of light years beyond tomorrow in...
Sono lieto di poter rievocare in poche parole le esperienze delle prime trasmissioni radiotelegrafiche a grandi distanze da me felicemente eseguite attraverso l'Oceano Atlantico il 12 dicembre 1901.
Holy snapping bra straps.
It's a call from the darkness.
Republic of Avalon Radio. It's 0 hours, Avalon Standard Time. Republic of Avalon Radio.
The best radio in the whole wide world.
You're with the roar!
Republic of Avalon Radio. You are with the roar, and I am Jim Fiddler. Greetings. Greetings, Earthlings. Hope everyone's doing well so far in 2010. 2010. Yes, as I said, it is 2010. I'm reaching for my coffee. By the way, I guess perhaps maybe a lot of you don't even know. You're not even aware. I don't know. It's been quite a while since I've really painted any kind of a picture. You'd have to go back in time, back into the time portal of the past, which we could talk a little bit about. That's interesting. The whole idea of time and how we've been taught to think about time and how time really actually works. Yeah, I'll talk about that if I don't forget. And if I forget, somebody remind me, and maybe I'll talk about it some other time, if you'll pardon the pun. In any case, I don't have time for talking about time right now because I was just about to talk about something else. Yes, where am I? Here I am. That's the whole thing. That's what I was just going to talk about. I am right now, as we speak, in my studio. Now, what does that mean, some of you might say? My studio, is that just my fancy pants word for my whatever, you know? Some people say, call a room their study or their library or something like that. And perhaps they don't study much in it, and perhaps there aren't really a whole lot of books in it. It's just a fancy pants kind of, BS yuppie kind of thing. But no, folks, this is an actual studio, an actual recording studio. Right in front of me, I have a console. This was, or sort of still is, the heart of the studio. I'm just got buttons, sliders here, you know, standard kind of stuff. You see a recording studio, you see a big board, a big mixer board with a bunch of sliders and knobs and, you know, tings and tings. We got that. That's here in the form of a thing called a VS2480 made by Roland. So that's there. I recorded a bunch of stuff on that. I used to have one before this called the VS1680. And the differentiation between the 1680 and the 2480, quite simply, is that you mix down to, but aren't limited to, 16 tracks in the case of the 1680, and 24 tracks in the case of the 2480. So this one here is the 2480. With this machine, I can record music, I can record songs, I can record an album, or a CD, whatever they're calling it these days, and mix it down to 24 final tracks. It doesn't mean that I can only record 24 tracks. I might want to record more tracks than that and then group them together. You know, in the case of, say, a drum kit. You record a drum kit and... see, actually, these tracks also contain virtual tracks, which I suppose they're all virtual when it comes down to it, because there's no tape involved. But each track is in layers. So let's say on track 1, just when I record something, I'm on virtual track 1 of track 1. I record something and I want to keep it. I want to keep that there. I can switch then to virtual track 2 on track 1. Now, I don't recall. You know, I tend to be fairly, I guess, simplistic about these things, really. I guess I've worked on some projects. I've produced some records that have kind of gained me a reputation, the reputation of, I suppose, you know, whatever sound characteristics. You know, I'm very much in the color when it comes to sound. So I really like the idea, not so much of just sort of taking guitars and drums and bass and vocals, and then just sort of putting them up and down in terms of volume, or back and forth in terms of left to right. And you know, it's not a live sound that you're dealing with in here. It's not some band that's playing in front of you right now, so you just have to just kind of put it together as best as you can, have no feedback, blowing people's ears out, and there, I did a good job. There's more to it involved than that, and you actually get to actually paint with sound. And I do mean that literally. There's a lot you can do with sound, and if you listen to an album that is mindful of that, not everybody is. Some people, a lot of stuff you hear is just live engineering carried into a studio. A lot of people just sort of take that approach, at least in terms of what gets to the ear as the final product. I hate calling it a product, but that's what it is. Or let's say the end result, whatever. The CD, the disc, the chip, the record, the tape, the whatever you buy, wherever you're listening right now, whatever, or whatever you just download through your neural chip or whatever. Yeah. In any case, the end result, what you hear. And in many cases, a simple recording is actually harder to make than something that's more complex. If somebody comes to you with a spectacular orchestral arrangement for something, for some piece of music, then all they really need from you there is just some good engineering, good input chain, some good mics, so on and so forth, and you record the dang thing and you're done. Easy. And that's an orchestra. Wow. But somebody comes to you and they want to record a very, very simple song, and they say to you, quote unquote, well, I just want to keep it simple. I don't want a whole bunch of horns and drums and Rudy Toot Toots and Rumby Tum Tumps and all that stuff on the thing. It's a simple song, man. You know, it's honest. It's really straightforward, man. I don't want all that production stuff on it, man. You know, overproduced, man. I don't like that overproduced sound. I think I know what people mean when they say overproduced. Sometimes you can take a simple recording and just overcompress it, and it sounds overproduced. Production is a very interesting thing. In French, the word is réalisateur. I consider myself more along them lines of being a réalisateur. I'm realizing. I'm just the one who realizes the potential of the music. Producer. I'm not producing the music. What the heck is that? That's a very presumptuous term, and I can understand why it rubs a lot of people wrong, and a lot of people are intimidated by it, because I've got my music, and now someone's going to come in and produce it, as if I haven't produced it already. No. I'm just going to help somebody who has the music to a certain stage, to a certain point, and they need somebody else to carry it further. You know, much the same way as in your doing your own child's dental work, for example, whatever. You want to raise your own child, and you want to instill some morals and things like that. You want this child to grow up to be a good man or woman, and so on. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you start going to the toolbox and doing all the dental work on your child. So you do have to go outside sometimes. I'm a big proponent of DIY or DIY, do it yourself. But you see, do it yourself. What's the it? That which you are capable of doing, not DEY DEY. Do everything yourself. Do what you can do, and what you can't do, learn how to do it. And if you're proficient enough with whatever that is, and you're at a point where you're comfortable enough, depending on where this thing has to go. If you're cooking something and it's only you eating it, maybe that's the best way to think about it. If you're home by yourself and you want to flick something together to feed the whole, take away the hunger pang, then that's good enough. But when you're preparing it for other people to listen to, or to eat, then it's a whole other ballgame, really. So take a sip of coffee. Yes, indeed. So I think that's not a bad analogy. I some of my analogies can be a little bit interesting to some people sometimes. I don't think that's a bad one. Think about it that way. Anyway, the point of simple music, someone telling you I want this simple. Well, to make something sound acceptable. Now, I think the average person has this kind of word that they use, and I know what they mean. They say, that sounds professional. They hear a recording, and it doesn't have to be a full orchestration or anything. There's a certain something that people can't describe that has to do with, the performance itself, the playing, the singing, the dynamics, the feel in the music, not just hitting all the right notes at the right time, but the feel. And by the way, folks, that is the most important thing when it comes to music. It's the feel. It is the feel. It's not just playing notes at a certain time. That's why there's absolutely no threat anytime that I can see in the near future to computers just taking over music altogether, because there's a feel. It's like, even when you look at our artificial intelligence, there's not a soul there, and that's the difference. I could spiral off on all kinds of tangents. Really, that really is the difference. People are comprised of what? I think it's pretty well accepted universally by many people that we're kind of, I guess, mind, body, and soul. Those kind of three elements. The body, obviously, being this kind of thing that we push around by sending commands to it from our brain. The mind being the brain, that center processing unit or whatever, where the information is all received from various, sensory devices that pick up audio and visual information and so on and so forth, and process it and make decisions at a very high computational level, by the way. That old brain thing there is pretty good. I don't think we got gypped on that one. I think we got a pretty good deal on that. Especially seeing as though it's free, when you think about that. That's the whole thing that maybe we don't think about too much. The whole idea of the mind and the body. It's interesting. You don't have to buy upgrades. You don't have to buy more capacity. As long as you're engaged in the school of life. And I tell you, that's the best school. That's by far the best school. Then you don't have to pay anybody anything, and you don't need to get, another block of RAM or anything like that. So I think we got a pretty good deal on that one. And the body's pretty much like that, too. What an amazing piece of gear. And it tends to last, in many cases, quite a long time, depending on how well you maintain it and look after it and lubricate it and all that kind of stuff. So pretty amazing stuff, folks. The body and the mind are pretty impressive. But in actuality, they are just tools, because any computer, you've got the memory and the processor and all that stuff, and all the things attached to it to take in information and compute things like keyboards and mice and cameras and microphones and all sorts of things that take in all the data, all the information, and then run whatever various computations and take whatever action based on whatever the thing is hooked up to and so on. We could get into robotics, I suppose, but robotics is still at a pretty simple sort of stage of development, a preliminary kind of stage of development. I mean, it's a very difficult thing. Just replicating the mind and the body, or the computational power of the human brain and its interactivity with its apparatus called the body, and the nervous systems and all these things. Pretty tangly stuff, really. Pretty amazing. And I think way too amazing to have bubbled up out of a little pool somewhere as a single cell animal that suddenly sprang up and started up whatever we're seeing all around us now in terms of all these things, money and economies and, well, even something simple. How about the I don't know. What's a simple thing? How about a wristwatch? There you go. So out of the blue, there's a little bubble, and a little single-celled organism comes up out of it, and eventually starts making wristwatches. Not very plausible, I don't think, from a scientific perspective. And I'm not coming at this from a scientific perspective, folks, but here's the thing. I guess I am partially, because we have many ways of measuring things. You have these measuring sticks in terms of observation and calculation and taking into account, for example, when you're crossing a street, you shouldn't just rely on your eyesight. You should also listen, because your eyes could be trained in the opposite direction. You hear a car coming, and you just keep looking the other way. So it shouldn't be just look both ways before you cross the street. It should be, use all sensory perception available to you to determine whether it's safe or not to cross the street. That should be a better way of putting it. Look both ways before you cross the street is simple, but yes, in any case, the whole business about these kind of some of these monkeys got really smart because of this Darwinian evolutionary theory, which he said he didn't believe in himself, And here's the other thing about that whole thing, about the theory of evolution. Evolution doesn't... This whole business about evolution replacing creation. And creation by whom or what? Now, that's the next question, and then whom or what that is, who created that. Well, fine. Just because you don't know the answer to question number 4, don't not ask question number 1. If there's enough evidence there, and I mean scientific evidence, if you think along them lines, scientifically, tangibly, like, if it's not like that, it doesn't exist. Well, that's not very scientific, folks. Because if you were to call that science, then we'd still be thinking about the Earth in terms of being flat, because we just see land in all directions, and that's all there is to it. Obviously, it took a little, the observation of a little bit more information than that, thinking outside of the box, to come to the point and the realization that the Earth was not round, but spherical anyway. More of an oval, I think. Something like that. A football. Yeah. An American football. Yeah, I have to be careful not to get sidetracked here, because I have about 10,000 things swimming around in my head here right now, and I'm just trying to get to some sort of, not conclusion. That's the whole point about what I'm talking about. The beautiful thing about it is there is no conclusion, but there are many conclusions. And these conclusions aren't necessarily opinions or one angle or whatever leading to an endpoint. All these conclusions, they're more like deductions, I suppose, than conclusions. I think we're raised in such a way, and we're taught in such a way, that we have to become something, and that's it. And we better darn well stick to that. What do you want to be when you grow up? Boom. What are you? A Catholic, a Protestant, this, or that, or whatever? Boom. What are you? A city boy or a country girl? Boom. All these things. When, no matter who you look at, here's the thing, let alone looking at the world and the universe and life and all that stuff, each individual, any individual you care to think about, is multifaceted. Everybody is a truck driver, and a brother, and a son, and a father, and a neighbor, and a coworker, and the guy at the other end of the bar, and so on and so on and so on, and a ham radio operator, and an amateur astronomer, and a football fan, and all these things. So to say that anybody is one particular thing, but that is absolutely the way we're taught, which is counterproductive. It's not realistic. It's oversimplistic. It's not even just simplistic. It's wrong. It's just absolutely wrong to call it'd be like calling a car a tire. A tire is part of a car, but look at the tire, see that tire? Okay, let's get in the tire. It's not a tire, it's a car. It's an automobile, and part of that automobile is the tire. So it's not just to call an automobile a tire is not just an oversimplification. It's just dead wrong. And life is much like that as well, and the universe and Earth and all these things, people, humanity. We are not simply animals. We're taught that as well. We're taught that we're animals, no better or no worse. And what do we call better or worse? Is a toothpick better or worse than an iPod? Well, if you got something stuck between your teeth, I think the toothpick is a heck of a lot better. So it's not better or worse. All that business again. It's kind of a quantifying as opposed to qualifying. Again, it's not an oversimplification. It's just wrong. Things are what they are, regardless of what your opinion or your belief is. So you might believe in this, or you might have an opinion about that. Beliefs and opinions are of no use to anybody. At the very least, I suppose beliefs and opinions are kind of unformed thoughts. They're cop-outs in a way. You get so far with something, and then your opinion or your belief is based on some sort of little box of an idea. And you can't get outside of that box. You can't expand outward. You can't think. You can't look at it from multiple angles. You can't get past your own little kind of Catholic perspective, your own little city perspective, or your own little white perspective, or black perspective, or whatever. And people get bogged down and stuck on things. But there's just way too much going on all around us. That's way too beautiful and way too interesting and all that. And the simplicity of it is thinking outside of that box. And that box is all about what we've been taught. Everything has to be in a little box. You have to be able to stick a clear label on everything and everybody. And that includes mankind or humankind. And we're all just animals. We're smart monkeys. Well, for one thing, why haven't the other monkeys smartened up yet? What sort of mental sort of deficiencies do they have? Maybe we could put them in special class and get them all on Prozac or something and get them to chill out and stop running around and swinging from trees and things like that. Maybe they'd learn something. I don't know. You know, it's just, there's just way, like I say, there's just way too much there going on to ignore. And it's all very wonderful and beautiful and fascinating. And if we're going to just live our lives as these little things, you know, what are you? You're a guitar player. Or what are you? You know, you're a traffic cop or something like that. And if that's all there is going to be to your life, that's just really sad, I think. It's just sad for people to just think about their lives in that way. And to think about humanity in that way as just these bunch of destructive animals. There's a lot that goes on in nature that's very violent, a lot more violent than humanity. You want to look at the sun for a minute, you know, this big thing that we see in the sky, this light thing, that's, you know, over 99% of the mass of our solar system that influences everything. Boy, if the sun gets in a snit, you better look out. That's gonna affect an awful lot of things. Let alone, you know, somebody smoking a cigarette in Antarctica or something like that, blowing a hole in the atmosphere or whatever, all that sort of jazz. I mean, we have to exercise common sense with these things, cause and effect, and a bit of common sense goes a long way when you consider the guys with the smokestacks wagging fingers at the guy. I'm using cigarette as an analogy because both people are for all intents and purposes blowing smoke. But who's blowing more smoke than the next guy? And it seems to me that I see a lot of people with the smokestacks getting tax shelters and in cahoots with all the upper yuckamucks, and basically running roughshod over the planet and making you and me, who might be the little guy, down on our knees, rubbing two sticks together to try to build a little fire to keep our hands warm. We're supposed to feel guilty like we're destroying the earth or something like that. That's a controversial topic, I suppose. Some people would say, what am I doing, questioning global warming? Well, if you look into it enough, you'll discover that we're actually in a cooling period. Whoa, what a crazy thing. What did Jim just say there? We're in a cooling period? How can we be in a cooling period if it's global warming? Well, why did they change the term? They're not calling it global warming anymore. They're calling it climate change. Now, if you want, go get a dictionary and look it up. What is climate change? Climate change. What does it mean? Again, forget your beliefs and your opinions and all these things. You know, what you've been taught, what you believe, because you've been in this kind of dialectic, you know, left, right, up, down, hot, cold, good, evil, all that kind of stuff. Just try to break out of that little box just for a minute and realize that the whole world's not going to blow up if you do. It's like people may be afraid of computers at first. They think they're going to hit the wrong key and blow something up. I think that's maybe what keeps a lot of people in that little small way of thinking. They're afraid of what's out there. That's an expression that's long interested me. People say, well, you know, people out there. And I just wonder, where are these people? Out where? If the world is out there, where am I? That's what I'd like to know. I'd like someone to tell me that. The world out there. What do you think of the world out there? Or should you be afraid of the world out there? I think that terminology is employed to give people that isolated feeling that they're separated from everything and everybody. And it's just a matter of which boogeyman they're going to roll off the assembly line this week to have you cowering under your bed, afraid of whatever, on a macro or micro or whatever level, or other fellow human beings who might live in another part of the world somewhere that you've maybe been occupying and blowing the heck out of for decades and decades, and they might get a little upset with that eventually. I don't know. Crazy idea. I know. The idea if you live in New Jersey, for example, some people came into New Jersey from anywhere, from New York, for example. It doesn't have to be from some place halfway across the planet. Some people came in from New York, marched on, all marched in, and started having at you guys with bombs and tanks and missiles and rifles and stopping you in the middle of the street when you're trying to go and buy a loaf of bread and frisking you and throwing you on the ground and kicking you in the teeth and stuff. I think people in New Jersey might get a bit upset with that after a while, but anyway, I am getting off on a tangent. I'm talking about the bigger picture, and the reason why I'm talking about the bigger picture is because we tend to get caught on things, as I said, and think in terms of a very small sort of piece of the pie, I guess. And so this piece of the pie, or this whole pie, I should say, the pie itself, the big thing, the whole deal, can feed you for a long, long time. That little piece of the pie you have isn't going to feed you very well and very, very long. And the more you keep eating the same piece of pie over and over again, you end up with a kind of a spiritual malnutrition, I guess, or an intellectual malnutrition. I guess where I was just going, and I did get somewhat sidetracked. Sorry about that. But dang it, what the heck? This is it. This is life. I'm not some sort of university professor, and you're not sitting there taking notes, and I'm not going to give you an exam on it. This is just me, and this is just you. And if for some reason anything I say steps on your beliefs and opinions, and because there's all kinds of buttons that I could be pushing. You could be of this particular sect of a particular break-off from a particular segment of a particular church, and I've already said something that's just totally inflamed you, and you've turned me off. I hope not. I hope that whatever you perceive me to be, if you perceive me to be, a newfie or whatever you perceive me to be, I hope that you, as a fellow human being, find something of what I'm saying at least interesting. And some of these things you might not have thought of before. We're all at various points and various phases, and we all have our day-to-day lives and jobs and children and things to take care of. So we all don't necessarily think about all the same things at the same time, and we're all at various points in our research, I suppose. And that's really what it is. It is research. Because you have to find these things, not that they haven't been found before, but you have to look for them again. That's research, You have to research them. You're not Columbus discovering America, and quite frankly, it was already there. So he wasn't a discoverer as much as he was a researcher. Because I think the fact that European-made maps of North America that predate Columbus being in existence kind of throws that whole big Columbus hero story out the window. And, I'm not even just talking about the Vikings 500 years before that. I'm talking about some other information, some other things. But anyway, I was just going to get on to the other element. I was talking about sort of the mind and the body and the opinions and the beliefs and all these things that shape our lives or distort our lives, more accurately. But there is a third element to what makes a human being. And what makes a human being better or worse. Like I said, is a toothpick better than an iPod? Or is a toothpick better than a supercomputer or a jet airplane? Well, if you want to get a little piece of meat or a little piece of popcorn or something out from between your teeth, well, I think the toothpick is a little better. So I think, again, these kind of hot, cold, black, white kind of things aren't very useful. Is a human being better than a microorganism? Well, perhaps you could say it is in the sense that a human being is comprised of many, many microorganisms. So compared to one, it's maybe better in terms of quantity, in terms of quality, whatever. Yes, that whole business anyway. That whole business of the human being being better. Better in the sense, I mean, when I say better, we are better than animals. When I say that, I mean that in the same way as the automobile is better than the tire. All right? The automobile is better than the tire. Better than, as in better than, meaning there's a kind of, I'm probably conjuring up some sort of old genetic memory of German or Middle English or Old English or French or something, or Cherokee or whatever. Better being grander, being more substantial than something else. Not as in, is pistachio ice cream better than strawberry ice cream? That's a matter of opinion. I don't mean that. I mean the higher quantity / quality or whatever of something is actually better. No opinion, because you could maybe prefer pistachio ice cream to strawberry, but what about a really, really good homemade strawberry ice cream versus a really, really crappy, horrible pistachio ice cream? Then you might say that, in your opinion, pistachio ice cream is better than strawberry ice cream, but hey, undeniably, as ice creams go, this strawberry is a better ice cream than this pistachio. So I'm talking about that kind of better. Not the opinion better or something that's going to ruffle your feathers, your Darwinian evolutionary feathers that tell you that in terms of something beyond all mathematical probability and something beyond all sort of scientific information or any sort of anything that we would see come out of science that's supposed to make sense. The whole idea of all of this coming out of absolutely nowhere for no reason, just on some sort of a whim, and then taking this kind of developmental path and developing these very, very high. I mean, just look at the human body alone. Forget the mind, forget the soul or the spirit or the character or whatever you want to call that. Just look at the body, and even not even just the body. Look at one part of the body. Look at the human eye. The human eye and the way it works is just, you could spend lifetimes just in awe of the eye and the optic nerve and the brain and the nervous system and the way the information comes in, and then it's all most of it is all filtered out and it's all turned upside down and processed, and then your mind is told actually what to think. Ultimately is how that works. You don't see what you see. What you think you see is actually a very small percentage of the visual information that your eye actually detected. Then it's all filtered out and censored on your behalf. So reality is not what you see. Reality, and I'm not even talking about stuff that's out of the spectrum, out of the visual spectrum. I'm talking about it's within the visual spectrum, but your brain tells you that, that's not important. Don't mind that. No, don't think about this. And it narrows it down to a very small percentage, actually, of whatever your eye perceived, and then that's what you think. And this all happens in a nano instant. I just think, for example, just that alone is a little bit too much to fathom. That's just too much right there, let alone all these other things. So if you're of the mind that, I don't know, that we are just beasts, we are animals, and we just somehow evolved. That's, I guess, what you might call a pragmatic scientific sort of approach to things. Well, let's please be a little more pragmatic and a little more scientific, because science does not operate on those kinds of assumptions. At least, theoretically, science is supposed to operate on some sort of probabilities, and I think it's a reasonable scientific assumption to make that which is less probable is probably less probable, and that which is more probable is more probable. And when you start looking at things that look so absolutely off the scale improbable, to make that the number one foundation of whatever you're calling your scientific hypothesis, postulate, or theory, or assumption about life, the universe, and everything, that's very unscientific. That's kind of getting mumbo jumbo, ooga booga. And you people who think scientifically are not supposed to act like that, according to a lot of what some scientific people say. You guys are supposed to be more level-headed, more reasonable, and if it hisses like a snake and it looks like a snake and all that kind of stuff. So the whole idea of the human condition, this all started out by me talking about where I am. I'm in this recording studio here. But I mean, it's all part of that whole thing. It's all part of the thing, and I am part of the thing. So it's okay for me to have a coffee and have a rant on a day in February 2010. Whoever decides that it's 2010, all right, I'll go along with it. 2010, fine. But again, another arbitrary number that means nothing. The world didn't start 2010 years ago. In fact, if that's supposed to be some sort of measurement of some sort of Christian measurement, Christ wasn't born 2010 years ago either. I don't think there are many Christian theologians that would take me to task on that. It's just an arbitrary number. Okay, so anyway, it's 2010. Fine, we've gotten in the last episode of the Roar. We established that. I didn't question that. I didn't give that any trouble. But if we look at mathematical probability, for example, math has always interested me because math really is music, or music is math. The language. People say that math is the universal language. Well, people also say that music is the universal language. So, people get kind of strange about that as well, because they got their own little opinions and beliefs about what music is. Even if they're not musicians, they have these beliefs and opinions about music. And I've had people get offended when I say that. The funny thing about that is I could say to them, math is the universal language. So if you're going to send out a probe into space, you want to illustrate our intelligence. The best way we could communicate is not in Lithuanian or English or Sanskrit or whatever. The best way for us to communicate with any potential sentient beings that might receive the message are just show them some mathematics to show that we're alive, we're thinking, here we are, and that kind of thing. People will go along with, oh yeah, math is the universal language. They go along with that. All right, fine. Then they would say, music is the universal language. All kind of romantic-like. And you might catch that same person making those two statements on a Monday and a Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, you might say to them, music is math, and they'll come aboard you. They'll disagree with you and get their feathers all ruffled up, and that's not their opinion. No, it's not. Math is no, it's not. Music is a beautiful thing. Music is natural. Music is, well, all right, whatever. I'm kind of keen on music myself. I have music in my bones, and That's my purpose in this life, really. I would say my main purpose. Whatever the message in the music and all that might convey, that's bigger than me, that's beyond me. But my actual communicating of it, I suppose, is my propagation of it is my purpose. So what the heck do I know, you know? And then you try to remind them that, okay, this pragmatic scientific person who just said A equals C on Monday, and then they said B equals C on Tuesday, and then you just go up to them thinking, wow, I like this person. They're pretty straightforward. So you say, hey, guess what? I thought about what you were saying on Monday, and I thought about what you were saying on Tuesday. So guess what? A equals B, huh? And you piss them off. Yeah. Fascinating, hey? So music is the universal language. Math is the language of the universe, or the universal language. But never the twain shall meet. Very unscientific, very unmathematical, very, very illogical. Sorry, folks. The whole business between these romantic sort of opinions and beliefs and ideas that people might have based on the little corner of the little box that they're living in because they were jammed as square pegged into round hole as whatever. And everyone knows it. Everybody knows that they're a square peg jammed into a round hole. Everybody feels it on some level. But they don't know where to go. They don't know where to turn to figure out how to remove the peg. And besides, like I said, as I said earlier, it's I think it's scary for a lot of people. It's an uncomfortable feeling. It's that it would kind of pull the rug out from under themselves. But really, you know, that rug doesn't really serve you much purpose anyway if it keeps you from moving, if it keeps you from going forward. That rug that you feel, that little tiny square piece of rug that you're standing on, isn't really doing you much good anyway. Better to, if you can't turn it into a flying carpet, then the heck with it. It's a rag. Throw it away. It's no good. Anyway, the whole issue, I know I'm ranting here, but what the heck? I've not ranted really much on The Roar. Even though you would think a show with a name like The Roar, you think I'd be ranting and roaring all the time. I don't do it very often, so again, no apologies, and I hope that nobody is offended. But if you are, I beg maybe that you go back and listen to it again, because I'm not speaking from some sort of ivory tower. I'm not telling you that this particular little group of breakaway clerics of this particular little sect which broke away from the other branch of such a church or this or that or some philosophy, some Hegelian this or that or whatever. I'm not representing any of those, any one of those particular things. That does not interest me whatsoever. They all interest me. In terms of human history and human endeavor and so on, those things are all real and they're there. Now, a lot of the stuff that they propagate, various philosophies and various ideas and various socio-political things and so on a ground level are flawed and full of BS and so on and so forth. But only until you look into them and have a look at them and just taste them for what they are. Well, here, this is something I'm supposed, like I mentioned the I don't know what kind of ice cream I was talking about earlier, the pecan or whatever. Okay, you think you're like pecan ice cream, so whatever poison somebody puts in pecan ice cream, you're so blinded that you think you just love pecan ice cream that somebody can lace it with arsenic and you're just going to chomp it down and not even, taste it. You should be able to differentiate between the ice cream, period. You might have certain preferences in terms of flavor and things like that. Whatever, that's fine. We can't help that. We all have certain preferences in terms of music or art or aesthetics or whatever. And people too, and that's okay, by the way. In case you didn't know, I'm just here to tell you. Certain people that just, I don't know, you just, whatever, you don't click with them. That's okay. That's allowed. You know, it's not a matter of loving these ones and hating those ones. I really look at it more along the lines of, I've tried to give to people in my life, and they just will not take anything that I have to give. So that's okay. Because if I'm still busting to give whatever it is I have to give, and this particular person don't want anything to do with it, they don't want to receive it, but ultimately I'm busting to give it, why should I spend the rest of my life trying to remold and reshape and ram whatever? There's no point to that. So that whole business is, again, it's all based on the little box and the opinion and the belief. And, well, I'm a left-handed urban Vatican II Catholic, this, that, dum-de-dum-de-dum. And then you're going around basically looking at the world through a little tiny, not even a straw. You're looking at the world through a needle. No matter, again, whether that's Catholicism or atheism, another fantastic religion. Atheism is a very, very interesting sect. It's actually a breakaway religious sect of the science religion. And hey, what did he just say then? What do you mean science is a religion? Science is the opposite of religion. No, it's not. Religion as science originally, if we look at, the big thing that gave science its moment in the sun, its lights, got science out into the light of day where everybody could, start warming up to it and liking it. It wasn't just guys, chopping up dead bodies and things like that. That's all pretty creepy. But supposedly science questioned some fallacies and kind of set them straight, like the Earth ain't flat, it's round. And the sun doesn't revolve around the Earth, and the Earth revolves around the sun, and all these things. So they were interested in getting to the truth and not being, shrouded in make-up nonsense just to fool people. So science was established, I guess, in the public mind as an eye-opener, as something that would question these things. And what they were questioning was this is the way it is, and anybody who questions it is a heretic, a fool, a kook, a freak. That's what they challenged. And I think many corners of science has become that. If you question whatever data or information. And I mean, science has become very political as well. You look at the whole the review process. Anyone does any research, if you're not in with the in crowd and you come up with something that might think outside the box or question anything, man, you're going to get slammed. Forget it. Just very, 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 very much the same thing as the medieval church. It's become like that in many ways. Not entirely, not in every corner, and not in the mind of every individual like me or you, who might enjoy that area of pursuit in terms of life, the universe, and everything. Because that stuff is all very real too. It's when it gets in the hands of people and it gets twisted and these little boxes get created for everyone to be in. And if you're in this box, then, and I'm in that box, then your box is bad and my box is good. All that kind of stuff. Science is part of it. You see, we've got three branches, three ways that we've been taught to think, three paths that we can pursue. And to a large degree, it's never the twain shall meet. It's one, the other, or the other, pretty much. Which I think is, again, highly unreasonable. And these are pretty big boxes, really, when you think about it, in comparison to many little smaller boxes. You can go one of three ways. You can go religion. You can go science. Or you can go philosophy. If there is a fourth one, please somebody point it out to me. But those are pretty much, I think, the three that I can think of. And, you're either pursuing a kind of a dead mechanical universe that has this totally inexplicable, improbable, crazy thing in it called life. Okay? Or you're pursuing some kind of image of, let's say, for example, and again, see, I'm not questioning, I'm not questioning all science. I'm not questioning all science as it is. If it's not a religion, if it's not some little smaller bit, science in earnest, science that really is interesting in pursuing the truth. I'm not even talking about the worst case scenarios. Let's put it that way. I'm talking. Let me start this again so that I'm sure not to color it in any way. Religion is that kind of pursuing of that which is non-material, the spiritual, the cosmic, the creation, that kind of thing. Science being more the pursuit of that which is tangible, observable, repeatable, demonstratable and repeatable. And philosophy, that being more along the lines of, I guess, not the pursuit of necessarily either of those two, but maybe a combination somewhere thereof, and a kind of a speculation above and beyond. Those are, I guess, the three, and the third is kind of interesting because it's not really one in and of itself. In many ways. In many ways it is, but not entirely. So a philosopher doesn't necessarily have to be a theological philosopher or whatever, or a scientific philosopher. Everybody speculates. Everybody has ideas. Everybody wonders what if or how about if more or less or whatever. I think the philosopher actually has a little bit of an advantage in a sense because he can kind of have at religion and science equally. At the same time, am I saying that philosophy is somehow superior? No, I'm not saying that at all, because I think a lot of times people get carried. Philosophy is can turn into a kind of an anything goes, and then philosophy becomes a religion, another religion of the closed mind, where you just say anything goes and nothing this and nothing that, and yeah, that's just your opinion and all that stuff. That's that. And, the religious zealot, somebody of a particular persuasion, would get stuck in their little groove, and it's the same kind of thing. And the scientist will say, well, just everybody knows, blah, 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 whatever it is. And then you point out to him that you just read a scientific journal the other day that says that shows that science itself is now denying and has disproved whatever that thing that he just tried to ram down your throat as solid 100% fact, whatever that is, Things are ever flowing, ever changing, ever circling, ever spinning, ever evolving, and to try to cling to 1974, for example. You might like a lot of music from 1974. Or when you were 74, it might have been what you perceive as being the happiest time in your life. But you're not going to make yourself any happier by clinging to 1974. In fact, that is a sure formula for misery. So, the same thing goes with anything else. People have to ask questions, is what I'm saying. People have to ask questions. I think, the image of a blue-eyed, blonde-haired Jesus should get some people thinking. Some people should think about that long and hard. That's one thing in category number 1, the religion category. In the philosophical department, well, a lot of things should get people thinking there. A lot of it's. I'm trying to keep this a family show. Certain words and phrases come to my mind, and I'm engaging in self-censorship here. I don't want to offend anybody, and I don't want anyone to have to hit the stop button or whatever because there's people within the listening area that might be of a young and tender age. So, but yeah, there's a lot of just really bad assumptions. And a lot of wishing. I think a lot of people really wish a lot of things. The word belief, in fact, comes from an Old English word, leaf, which actually means to wish. So to believe. What do you believe in? What do I believe in? I don't believe in anything. Belief is not the same as faith. Belief is actually the opposite of faith. Faith is a solid thing. Faith is comfort. It's not agitation. It's not fear. Faith is the opposite of belief and fear and wishing, desperately wishing and hoping that you're right about some particular thing. You know? So that might agitate a few people just right there. What do you mean? Belief is the same thing as faith. No, it's not. No. You can believe in God, for example, and have no faith in God. In fact, if you're desperately believing in an imaginary guy with a beard sitting on a cloud, then you have no faith, because you have to personify God. God has to be a man with a beard before you can believe in God. And then your scope and whatever investigation that you might conduct and whatever information that you get, you're going to color your own data when you're looking into the cosmos, when you're looking at a flower, when you're looking at under a microscope, and you're looking, in all these places where you may see God. You're not going to see God if God is a man with a beard. Just that little example right there. I think we're not careful. We're not nearly careful enough to not urinate in our own bathtub or in our own swimming pool. That's the problem. We color things, and we want our data to support our hypothesis when we embark upon our research. And I think people better be careful about that, because enough research will support your whatever your assumptions are. It doesn't make them right, though. It doesn't make them right at all. So, all this rambling, where's it leading, you might wonder. I sort of covered the body. Didn't really get too much into that. I'm not a physician. Covered the mind a little bit. I was a psychology major in university, and I'm a living, sentient human being. I'm not just some alien observing human behavior, and I got no business to be talking about that because I'm not from here. No, I'm from here, and I've actually studied it on an academic level, but I've also been aware of it and pondered it and so on, from a hands-on, feet on the ground, part of the school of life perspective as well. So I commented on that. The third one, of course, is the more dodgy, I suppose. The more subjective one, the more controversial one, let's say. I don't think there should be any controversy about it at all. It's the spiritual, it's the uber animal side of us. It's the sum of the memory and the processor and all the input devices that the cameras and the keyboards, the things that put language and visual images and microphones that receive waveforms and audio vibrations and all that stuff. That's all fine. And the monitor which displays the stuff, and the programs which run, and do various things based on the input through the keyboard or the mouse or the whatever you're using. There's that other element. There's the operator. Who's operating this computer? Who's installing these particular programs? And why are they installing these programs and not those programs? Why do some people have Photoshop on their computers and other people don't have Photoshop at all? Some other people might have Cubase or Pro Tools or something. Why is that? You know, different people choosing to put different programs on their computers. Well, that's the whole point. Who's making these choices? Because if we're all just brains and bodies, we're just animals and there's nothing more to it. Who's choosing to put those programs? Either us or we're letting other people choose for us. But who's us? Who's I? When I say I, who is that? What is that? When I say, if I am just my thoughts, here's the thing. If all I am is body and thought, body and brain, if that's all there is to me, when I say I think, who's doing the thinking? I mean, just the simple concept of I think. Just say it to yourself. Think about it. I think. Do you think? If I ask you, do you think? You, right there. Do you think? You say, sure I do. Well, who are you doing the thinking? If you are just the thoughts, then I think makes no sense. You would just say, think. There would be no I. I think means someone's thinking, and that's you. The voice in your head. Think about the voice in your head. What does it sound like? Does it sound like you? Does it sound, does it have a male voice, or does it have a German accent, or does it speak in Mandarin or whatever? The voice in your head only speaks language when you have time. That's the slower version. That's when it's really up to the top of the conscious mind. And, people have been caught even moving their lips to the sound of the voice in their head. In fact, some people have even, verbalized it, okay, here, where does this part here go? Where's that damn screw? Oh, it fell on the floor. Where the heck did that go? Is that the voice in your head, or is that, whatever? I think it borders whatever, the voice in your head. But the voice in your head can think a lot can speak a lot faster than that. And it doesn't really have a language. It's not English with a Newfoundland accent. It's not French with a Quebec accent. The voice inside your head, the I think. And is that philosophy? No. I think that's just direct observation. That's common sense. I don't think you need to go to a university to learn that. I don't think you need to pay tens of thousands of dollars to get a piece of paper to prove that you know that. You're either aware of that or you're not. You're either interested in that or you're not. But I think on a very basic common sense kind of level, people can identify with what I'm saying. No matter who you are you. And you are not just the tire on the car. You're not even just the car. You're the driver. That's the ultimate conclusion that I was leading up to after all this babbling. I guess the ultimate thing that I would say, though, is keep an open mind. But you need to be very, very clear about the premise. The premise by which it's okay and safe for you to have an open mind is that you're not just desperately seeking some little box to get in. So you're going to go and look at a bunch of boxes and then choose that box. That is dangerous. At least in the sense that you will end up in that little box. Now, whether you're ultimately comfortable living the rest of your life in that little box or not is entirely up to you. That's the thing. But no, I think there's just too much wonderful beauty all around us and inside of us to limit ourselves to that, to some little box. I don't want to just be known or think of somebody else as the ham radio guy up the road, for example. He may be a ham radio operator, but I don't think that's all there is to him. I don't want to just think of her as the mother figure who makes a wicked casserole or something. There's a lot more to her than that. So I think all the information that's available in terms of looking into the eyes of a small child, in terms of reading ancient documents, in terms of listening to people talk about things that they've experienced firsthand themselves that could be easily explained, or maybe not very easily explained at all in terms of anything. I think they're all part of the whole, and I think you have to build up a basket for yourself and throw a lot of stuff into that basket, knowing that you're you're not trying to eventually at some point pull everything but one of those things out of the basket, because the sum total of reality is not what we're being presented. This thing that we call reality, that has to do with President whoever and whoever's in Hollywood and whoever the bad guy is halfway across the world and all that stuff. You could even, on a theological, philosophical, or scientific level, actually on many fronts say that even this physical world, how we perceive that's not real, because that's all made of nothing, pretty much. It's all made of little particles of light. And now science and Scripture have come to some sort of agreement on that, even. You know, that whole business. Just to go back to Scripture, for example, for my friends out there who might have read the Old Testament from an academic perspective, or a Christian perspective, or a Jewish perspective, or just a perspective of interest, or whatever. Before God created God, Elohim, all right? Elohim means plural. Look it up. Talk to a theologian. Ask what that means. I won't come to any conclusions on that. I'm not, that's all part of your research, your interest. You're either interested or you're not. But there is this book, and it's called the Old Testament, and there's some information in there. And one of the bits of information, there's all kinds of, that's an interesting thing to do a search for on Google, or I use Startpage.com. It's an alternative to Google. Have a look at it. It's interesting. You can do all your searching just as you would on Google, except it's secure and it's private. You're not being logged and tracked and all that stuff, so that they can push some kind of ads at you or invade your privacy in any way. Anyway, do a search for science in the Bible, or ancient technology, all these kinds of things. Very, very interesting. But a very, very curious thing that would really make no sense scientifically. A scientist would just completely poo-poo it and say that this is obvious proof that this is mumbo jumbo. Is it says in Genesis that I can't remember exactly where, chapter 1 or 2 or 3 maybe, I think, I don't know. It says that God created light, Elohim, before creating the sun. That's my point. Not light in the sense of the sun, but light. And then from that point, from that light, he made everything else. And now science realizes that after looking down on a micro level, at submolecular, they realize, wow, this is kind of strange, because all this stuff that we perceive as being solid and tangible and real and physical is actually made on a subatomic level of a whole bunch of really actual nothing, and in fact just little particles of light. So all these things like tables and trees and rocks and mountains and people that you think of only in that physical sense aren't actually this isn't just from some sort of Christian perspective or Jewish perspective or Muslim perspective or Buddhist perspective or whatever. And I'm not a pantheist, by the way, either. I'm not into this one world religion and all that stuff. In fact, I'm not not into any of that. Science comes to the same conclusion that it says right there in the Old Testament. There are many other things too. If you look back, various bits of technology and certain scientific realizations, things that people could not have realized. Another little point is Moses was instructed to tell his people to basically keep their hands clean, when they're eating and preparing food and all these things. And our so-called modern science has not been very, very long. It wasn't very long ago that they discovered this whole thing, these little things called germs. And there it is right there in the Old Testament. All I'm saying, folks, is if you take sources of information and throw them out carte blanche, baby out with the bathwater, oh, I don't believe in the Bible, the whole thing gone. Oh, I don't believe in quantum physics, whole thing gone. Whatever. Then you're cutting yourself off. I think we're much better off to explore and look at all this stuff, because only after looking at from so many different angles are you then able to actually put some pieces together and connect some dots and find some consistencies and some actual truths and some at least pieces of the puzzle of the real reality, as opposed to the matrix that we're living in, where we're all living in these little boxes and we're so easily controlled. So anyway, it's all a very wonderful thing. And I'm going to leave you with this little sound, fade in the background. That sound you're hearing in the background there now. Let me just shut up and let you hear it. You know what that is? You may be thinking it's a radio. Well, it involves a receiver. What you're hearing is the sound of the galaxy. Let me just let you listen to it another little bit. This is actually the sound of the galaxy. Just listen. Interesting. We always tell people, the roar is best listened to on headphones. There are reasons for that, especially from time to time. Yeah, so that's the galaxy. That's the sound, the open sound of the galaxy. Nothing in particular jumping out at you, just the background noise of the galaxy. And let me just let you hear another little something. Let's turn our ears toward, say, the planet Jupiter. Let's just listen in and see what Jupiter is, what kind of noise Jupiter is making. All right, that was Jupiter. And the last thing that we will listen to here before I say sayonara is the sun. Let's have a little listen to the sun. Let's listen to a little bit of activity. First, you'll hear just the background noise of the galaxy. And then that increasing noise that you're hearing will be a solar storm, which can last from anywhere from next to no time at all to up to seconds. And you'll hear actually one of these. And this stuff is very interesting from the perspective of radio, ham radio, all these things. You can actually, by listening to the sun, you can tell what's going on. It takes time for these sounds to get from the sun to us. It takes 8 minutes. So anything you're listening to when you listen to this stuff by use of a radio telescope will tell you you're listening at any given time to what was happening on the sun 8 minutes ago. But depending on what you hear, these things like a solar storm or whatever can generate radiation and flick out some plasma toward the Earth that would take a couple of days to get here, and that can have a great effect on a lot of things in terms of telecommunications and satellites and all these kinds of things. So if you're into any kind of radio or communications or satellites ham radio means all of that stuff. If you're into ham radio especially, that's interesting. You could say, a couple of days from now, conditions are going to be pretty poor, whatever. That kind of thing. Yeah, okay, well, let's just, before I prattle on any further, let me just let you hear this little bit of solar activity. All right, so you heard that louder bit coming up. That was the sun rising up out of the sort of background galactic noise. And, yeah. Now, there is a little something kind of interesting that I ran into growing up, as a kid, taking things abroad, pulling things apart, seeing what made things tick, letting the smoke out of a lot of things and tinkering and fooling around with various things, mechanical, electronic, and mechanical, actually, and musical. From figuring out how to make a little tune with a blade of grass between my two thumbs to figuring out how to whistle and, make little noises like that and, play the, little popcorn song on your cheek, all these kinds of things, to always finding the acoustical properties of things, tapping on things and finding what sounds various glasses made and various pots and pans and radiators and tabletops and boxes and all these kinds of things. That was a big part of the whole thing, but it's all related. It's all related to what caused me to tear things apart, electronic things, tape recorders and televisions and things like that too. The whole business about listening to Jupiter or the sun or the galaxy or whatever, growing up, part of my fascination, of course, was electronics and more specifically radio. And I actually had a couple of Heathkit radios, didn't build them myself, but the concept is you send away and you get a kit. And woohoo, one day in the mail comes this box, and you take the box and you bring it down to the basement, you open it up, you take out the instructions, there's all these instructions, and there's all these parts and bits and little screws and tubes and things. And you follow the instructions just like a paint-by-number thing or whatever. And you build yourself a radio. Well, it's come to my attention recently that if you think you would be interested in having a radio telescope, sounds like a big lofty thing, but no, for $100 and something, for less than $200, you can actually order one of these kits and put them together. I think they sell one that's already assembled, a pre-assembled version. Costs more money, and why not just whatever, get your hands dirty and put one of these kits together. I mean, it's like playing with Legos. The most complicated thing you're going to have to do is melt a little bit of solder. That's all there is to it. But the rest of it is just like playing Lego blocks. And it involves a receiver and two dipoles. I think, two parallel dipoles. Dipole antennas are antennas made of wire, coaxial wire, which is, two wires, one wrapped around the other, like a braided, shielded wire wrapped around a hard core wire with an insulator in between. And you spread these out and make a dipole antenna. Anyway, this receiver uses two dipole antennas in parallel, two dipole antennas parallel to each other. And it's very interesting. Anyway, if you're interested in that, you can go to radiojove.gsfc, Golf Sierra Foxtrot Charlie.nasa.gov. And you can find out lots of information, including these sound samples and pictures and all kinds of things. And all the information and how you could possibly have your own radio telescope if you so desired. Fascinating or what? So there you have it. It's all part of it, too. That's all part of it. The whole idea of space and time, physicality, multidimensionality, and all these things. These things that were supposed to be just all sort of spiritual mumbo-jumbo that science seems to have jumped on board of recently because, hey, if it, as I said before, if it looks like a snake and crawls like a snake and hisses like a snake. Well, that's it, folks. This has been the rambling, multidimensional version or episode of Republic of Avalon Radio. If you want to get in touch with us, go to our website at republicofavalonradio.com. REPUBLIC, Republic of OF, Avalon, AVALON, radio, RADIO.com. And there's all kinds of ways there for you to get in touch with us and so on. We love to hear from you guys. The idea that you right there. The idea that you're listening to this is interesting, but the human element of actually hearing from you is it can't be estimated. It's great for us to hear from you. That's what I'm trying to say. It makes us feel really good to know that you're there and put a kind of a human voice or at least a human name to you. You know who we are, at least somewhat, and so we like that same feeling, that exchange. And speaking of which, a big thanks to Trucker Bob for recently going to republicofavalonradio.com and clicking on our PayPal button and showing us some of his love. Because of him, we were able to enjoy a couple of ales last weekend and think of him and raise a glass to him, which I think might have been his secret intention. He wanted some attention. He wanted a presence with us down at the pub, and he got it. He was there, and we raised a glass and had a smile and thought about him, and it was really nice. So thanks to Bob for going over to republicofavalonradio.com, clicking on the little PayPal button, and throwing something into the tip jar. That's always appreciated. We do have costs associated with all this. It's not just the labor of love. It's not just the work. It actually costs money. All this hard drive stuff and the various apparatus that we have, the recording devices and microphones and all this and that, plus the actual bandwidth and all that internet's stuff. So any little bit helps. And of course, it's always a good feeling to see people go and actually come away with my music, because that's the most important thing to me. It's one thing to throw something in the tip jar, that's much appreciated, but the music, quite frankly, if you put something in the tip jar, then we don't have to give anything in return. But that being said, it's always a good feeling to know that someone's getting the music, because quite frankly, I'm not always going to be around to talk to you like this, but the music can last longer than that. So all right, folks, well, thanks for listening. All the best to everybody. Hope 2010 is going well and that it will continue to go well and even better and better. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, keep looking around. A lot of great stuff all around us, and as I said before, inside of us already. So from Lillian and myself, take care of each other, and we'll catch you next time right here on Republic of Avalon Radio.
Seller production.